All right, perfect. I think we're all set. Light crowd today. I assume everybody's just all excited getting ready for QuickBooks Connect.
Is that next week?
It is. It is next week. In fact, that's part of the reason and the inspiration for today's topic. So good morning. Happy Friday. We're live with Zoom In with Seth, David, and friends. It's November 1st. Oh, my God. The year's almost over. Holy cow. Greg, is it cold up there?
It's chilly. It's in the 30s.
Where are you? It looks like you're not at home. It looks like there are public restrooms behind you.
Car dealership.
The car dealership. I was going to say that, actually, because I could see behind you on your right. It's like there's cars out there, and it's open. And got it. Very, very good. So I guess I'll give it another minute or two for people to kind of join in case people are running late. And then we'll just dive right in. And for those who weren't there, they'll just have to miss it or catch the replay. So, Dennis, I take it from your question that you're not going to QuickBooks Connect.
No. I don't really do that much with QuickBooks anymore.
Oh, is that right? So you're kind of all zero?
No, I mainly taxes. I mean, I use Zero for my own simply because I get it for free. But yeah, I do primarily taxes now.
I gotcha.
Things are getting crowded out right now.
Gotcha. All right. Connie, are you going to QuickBooks Connect? Nope. Greg, you're going. Fran, are you going? No,
I'm going.
you're
not this year.
Not this year. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there going to be live streaming of some of the events? Or,
They never live streamed. I don't think they ever live stream the main stage stuff. It gets a little tricky there because with the San Jose Convention Center, it's there's a union there. So if you want to do any kind of video or live streaming, you have to use them, and they charge you a fortune to do it. I mean, I think when I was there and I was starting to set up my camera so somebody could just video my session, they came over to me and kind of said, you can't do that. And I think the cost, I was curious. I said, just out of curiosity, what would it cost to have you guys do the filming? And they wanted like $6,000. Go away. That's ridiculous. So anyway, no live streaming or videoing or anything at QuickBooks Connect. Tiffany says she's got to get beautified for QuickBooks Connect. Tiffany, you are beautiful just the way you are. No need.
Are you speaking?
I'm not even going this year.
Oh, you're not going.
No, this year by April I kind of knew for sure I wasn't going to plan on going because my wife had hurt her back. She developed 3 bulging discs, and so I wasn't going to plan on leaving her, unless I knew for sure she was going to be okay, which she's not. She's still, no real solution in sight on that one. So
that's a bummer.
Yeah. And then with having to put 2 of our 3 dogs to sleep, that didn't really put me in the mindset, honestly, of wanting to go party and celebrate. And,
Connie is trying to tell us something, but her microphone doesn't seem to be working. We just see her lips moving, but don't hear her.
She's got the app.
She's going to connect.
Tune in. Watch live.
Are you replacing Ralphie? You're going to get a new Ralphie?
I don't know. It's been really hard, to be honest. And as time has gone on, and I thought it might get better, it actually only seems to get worse, because I think the reality just sets in that, he's gone. Yeah. So I still have his bed and his blanket over here every morning, look over, kind of wish I'll look over and find that he's in there, but of course he's not.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know. I mean, maybe we still have, Hercules, and we're trying to figure it out, but he seems like he's, lonely. He's used to having 2 companions with him all the time. So
right.
We've talked about waiting a few months and then getting, a puppy or something, another rescue. So it might happen. But not right away. Definitely not right away. All right, so I guess it is what it is. People are getting ready for QuickBooks Connect, which is actually kind of why I wanted to do this. Somebody emailed me last weekend, somebody who gets my email every week, and she asked me, she wanted to remember if I had, she thought she remembered that I had done something on what I'm actually going to do today, which had to do with, sort of when you're, I mean, initially I did it in the context of if you're speaking and you're presenting, and you can't really sell when you're presenting at an event like QuickBooks Connect. There are other things you can do. A lot of people will come over after your session and they want to hand you their business cards, or they'll just come up to you during the event and you'll want to exchange business cards. And so I realize it's not just for speakers, it's for anybody who's going to an event like this. You want to create a system and a process that makes it sort of easy to, to follow up. And because I remember years ago, I would come home with a stack of business cards, right? And now what am I going to sit there scanning them, or worse yet, actually entering the information manually in a CRM, and then, heaven forbid, trying to remember what I talked to them about or what I want to talk to them about, So I realized there was an opportunity here if you do a little bit of planning in advance, and it doesn't take much, to set up a system where you can gather their information digitally. And especially as a speaker, it was useful because I can't sell. But what I would do as a speaker is I would say, look, I have much more, they always get, as an attendee, you always get a PDF of the PowerPoint slides, right? Which, let's face it, not really so valuable, in my opinion. I mean, what are you getting in PowerPoint slides? You're getting some of the bullet points and things that they talked about, but not a whole lot of meat, if you will. So whenever I've presented somewhere, I've always prepared something much more in-depth, something more along the lines of a detailed outline with, almost like a blog post, but an in-depth one with screenshots and, something that people can actually use. And I've gone out there and said, look, if you fill out this form on my site, I will, you'll give me your details, just basically name and email, and I will send you the, the more in-depth materials based on what I'm presenting on at the session. But then, like I said, it became apparent that it's not only useful in that context, it's also very useful to just do it when you're walking around. And bottom line, the way, I want to walk you through, because when I got the email this week from my friend Cindy, and I emailed her and told her, I said, yes, I did something a few years ago, but a lot has changed since then. So it's worthwhile to do something sort of updated on this. Connie says, I guess my audio is broke. Yeah, it was working a minute ago, or more than a minute ago.
I can hear you just fine.
I think she
No,
has
you
her
can hear
off.
me. We can't hear Connie.
Oh,
So what Connie was trying to show us is that, because we were talking about whether or not they'd be live streaming, there is a link apparently in the app that shows you where you can go to QuickBooksConnect.com and you can watch live. So I guess they will be live streaming stuff. Anyway, so here's what I want to show you. I'll share my screen, and I'll show you exactly what the sort of process is. So the first thing you'll want to do, because you'll want to create a page on your website. Now, I use Kajabi now. I switched over to Kajabi this year. But whatever your website's designed in, it should be pretty easy. Let's put it this way. If it's not ridiculously easy to figure out how to create a new page on your website, it's time to probably get a new website built, right? It should be very straightforward. It's certainly easy in WordPress. In WordPress, at the top, you'll have an option that says new, and within that, you'll see among the choices page, right, to create a new page. So I'm going to do that here in my Kajabi website backend. And with Kajabi, with each page, you can pick kind of a theme or whatever. So I'm just going to pick something really simple. In fact, you can kind of tell from the preview that this is sort of designed perfectly for exactly what I'm trying to do. I just want to create a quick little opt-in form. So I'll click Get Started. And what we'll do is we'll call this QBC 2019, right? And the main thing is you want to make sure the URL is going to be easy. Obviously, it's going to be your domain / something. So you want the part after the / in the URL to be very easy, so that when you're walking around at the event, you can have somebody pull up their mobile device and say, hey, go to this URL and enter your details, right? So with Kajabi, and I've done a few of these Zooms now on Kajabi to show you all why I think you should all be switching to Kajabi. because it is ridiculously easy to use. In fact, I can create my own form right here in Kajabi, right? But because I know a lot of you probably aren't using Kajabi, I'll talk about some other ways that you can create forms, right? In fact, here it's asking me which form I want to associate with this. So I have to go create the form because I haven't done that yet, right? So let's do that. I'm going to sort of drag this tab over, and I'm going to duplicate the tab. And then I'm going to go back out.
Does this have a WordPress underpinning?
No, this is a totally separate
It's
platform.
separate? Okay.
Yeah,
I've been using
Kajabi was originally built and designed to deliver courses, but
okay.
over the years they have made it more and more robust, such that that's what happened with me earlier this year. I set it up initially with the intention just of creating courses with it and offering them, and the more I dug in and learned how it works, the more I said this needs to be the whole entire website, because it really does the whole process. And in fact, what I'm going to show you is how with this, when somebody opts in, I can create an automated email sequence, and so I can immediately send an email confirming that I've got their details, just so that there's, no question. And of course, sending them my own details, right? That way, when I'm walking around at an event like QuickBooks Connect, again, I can have them go to the page, fill out the form in 2 seconds, and they get an email autoresponder, and I can say to them, okay, so fill out this form. That way I'll have your information, and you'll get an email immediately with all of my information so that we can follow up with one another, right? So now I'm going to create the form real quick. So in Kajabi, I'm going to go to marketing. Now this is where this departs from WordPress. Again, one of the reasons I love Kajabi so much is that it does have everything in one place. So if you're going to create a form, you can use Google Forms. Very, very easy to do, and you can get embed code from Google Forms to put it onto the web page that you've created. And you don't have to understand the code. You just have to know how to find it and copy and paste it, which I can show you how to do. So Google Forms, Smartsheet, Airtable, there's a lot of products out there that will let you create the form, and then the results will go into some sort of a spreadsheet-like backend. Like Google Forms, of course, it goes into Google Sheets. Airtable goes into an Airtable base. Smartsheet goes into a Smartsheet project, which is very much like a spreadsheet. So in Kajabi, like I said, it's all built in. It's one of the things I love about it. So I'm just going to create a new form here real quick. You'll see how easy it is. I'll call it QBC 2019, just so I'm very consistent and I understand what kind of matches up to where. And by default, they assume I want first name and email. I'm going to add in a field for last name. Okay, and then I'll just drag this up so it's in the right order. And I will save it. And now that that's been created, I'll refresh this page just to make sure it'll see it. And then notice when I click on the form, on the left, it takes me right to the part where I get to edit the form. QBC 2019, there it is, right? And then all I have to do is click here. And, this is just the standard language. So I'm going to change this, and I'll just say, thank you for connecting at QuickBooks Connect. Right, and I'll get rid of the rest. I might even put little subheader text saying, fill in your details, and I will send you mine right away, right? And then what I can do, because now remember I'm doing 2 things. I've got a page with the form, and then I've got the form that's linked to the page, right? So what I can do now is, and again, this is Kajabi. So if you're not using Kajabi, let's say you're doing this in Smartsheet or Airtable or WordPress, you'll still need a form application. What you can do then is you can use something like Zapier to create the email autoresponder, right? And if we have time, I'll show you what that would look like. Pretty easy to do. With Zapier, you would just connect your Gmail account or whatever, and you create a Zap that says when a new form is submitted in whichever tool you've used, whether it's Smartsheet or Airtable or Google Forms, then send this email, right? So in Kajabi, what I can do is just add this automation right here. By default, it's going to assume I want to do something whenever the form is submitted. And there's a lot of different things I can do. So I'm just going to say, send an email, right, to the person. Subject, thanks for connecting at QuickBooks Connect. And it says hello, and it puts in the merge tag for their first name. So it's going to put their name in the actual email. Great. Let's say, I love connecting with people, and that's what QuickBooks Connect is all about. Of course, here's my info. Let's talk after the event and see how we can help one another. Of course, there's all kinds of things you could do here. Like if you have a scheduling program like Acuity or Calendly, you can insert the link to that and say, hey, let's schedule an appointment. You know, you can do anything. But the point is now you have their contact information and you don't have to worry about getting their business card or anything like that, right? So I'll just say save. Okay, and then back to the page. Keeps it pretty simple. Okay, I can add stuff to the page, but you want to keep it as simple as possible, right? You don't want to, you know, the point is to just get them there, get them to fill out the details so that you can move on, you know. And of course you can take their business card because then you can kind of match up their business card with, you know, the information they submitted on your web page, right? And then you can attach like an image of the business card or whatever. So, and one of the things I love to do, you know, sort of in tandem with this is because I use Nimble CRM, I can easily, once they've submitted the form, sort of call them up and pull up their details in Nimble. So what I want to do, if I can get Greg to help me out and volunteer. Greg, you still with me? Greg.
What did I do?
There you are. Okay, so do me a favor, Greg, and let me just get to the page. So go to new.nerdenterprises.com/QBC 2019 and fill out the form.
What do you think about making a bit.ly link so it's not quite as verbose as new.enterprises?
I thought about that, but remember that we're talking about networking here. So the point is that if somebody is familiar with me, I think it's easier for them to remember and understand my website domain than bit.ly. But you could certainly do bit.ly if you think that'll simplify it. But, you know, again, I literally specifically thought about that, about suggesting bit.ly. But then I said no, because again, when I'm talking to people, they're going to know Nerd Enterprises. So I think it's almost easier to remember new.nerdenterprises.com. Plus, I'll be standing there with them, so I can easily, you know, guide them through calling it up. But yeah, bit.ly would definitely work as a way of shortening it, so you have less characters that they have to enter in when they're standing there with you. All right, so did you fill it out?
Of course.
Okay, so now that Greg has filled out the form, here's what I can do. Again, this is Kajabi, so it's all built in. Let me search Greg Cullup. Okay, so he comes up in here. Actually, let me do it this way. There's a few ways to approach this. So let me go to forms.
Do you want me
now.
to log in with a bogus name that you don't already have?
No, it's fine. Did you get the autoresponder? Did you get the email?
I'm checking.
Meanwhile, while he's doing that,
Thanks for connecting.
Yeah, you got the email. Perfect. Yeah, it should be immediate. So if I go to the form now, I can click submissions, and there you are. And it looks like Matthew's watching somewhere live, and he's already, you know, smartass that he is. I'm a smartass, right? So what I can do with this now, though, and this is where I really love Nimble, is I can call up Nimble, right, using the Chrome widget. Nimble is my CRM. And so now that I have you here, I can move my mouse over your email, for example, and it brings you right up. Now, of course, Greg, you're already in there, right? So, but I can, if you're not in there, there will be an option for me to add you in, and then I can just grab all your details, right? And plus, Nimble is great about scanning the web to grab other details, right? And then I can click your name and get into like your whole kind of profile that I have with you on Nimble, right?
You probably don't want to share that publicly.
No. All right, I'll hide it. And then, of course, with Matthew, even though he put a fake name, I have the email. Right? Actually, no. His is that's not his official email. That's funny. So here you can see I can add him to Nimble, and then I could merge this with his existing profile since I know I do already have him there. So the email he used here was bogus. But the point is,
I know this might send you off on a Nimble tangent, but if you click on Add to Nimble right there, do you do any automation from that, or do you still have to manually go into the Nimble record and start putting tags and stuff to start any sort of automation from there?
So what I could do is I could actually use Zapier. And the other thing I could do is I could do an automation right here in Kajabi that when you fill out this form, it tags you QBC 2019, which normally I would actually do that, right? In fact, I'll show you what that looks like. So we did the automation that sends you the email right away. And by the way, I can program like an 8 email sequence that goes out over the course of a week, right? Which is what I normally do when I'm speaking somewhere. And then and the automation here would be to subscribe people to that email sequence, right? So when I'm speaking, the immediate email doesn't give them the materials I promised, because then instead of paying attention to me in my session, they're sitting there fumbling around with the email that I sent them and the attachments, right? And they're checking that out. So I give them an immediate autoresponder saying, you'll get your materials tomorrow. Meanwhile, pay attention, stay focused with me in the session, right? So that's the other piece of this that I'll normally do. But I can certainly add another automation here that says add a tag, and I can create a tag called QBC 2019. Because then I can filter my context right within Kajabi. Oops. There it goes. And that way, when I can go into email campaigns and I can configure an email to go out just to people with the tag QBC 2019. So I can send a bulk email addressing people by first name, so it's personalized, and then just kind of sending a generic follow-up that I want to, right? The other thing is, so going back to your question specifically about Nimble, I could do something in Zapier that says when a contact is added in Nimble, add them in, or in Kajabi rather, add them in Nimble with whatever tags I want to do. I do have some automations like that, not for this purpose specifically, but for example, when I get a new consulting client, and by consulting client, I mean somebody who hires us to do their accounting and bookkeeping for them, I have them fill out a form so I can gather all their client information. Once that form is filled out, it does create a contact in Nimble for them, and it tags them clients. So I know this. I can easily call up a list of my existing clients. If a client leaves, then I call them up in Nimble and I remove the tag. Or I might actually, I think I have a tag for inactive clients. Just so I kind of have a history like that. In my Nimble CRM. It helps because then every once in a while I can go call up the inactive clients and see if there's anybody I might be able to sort of resurrect as a client, right? And that's a very effective marketing strategy, by the way. A lot of times you can bring all clients back, depending, of course, on why you parted company. But if it was all in, sort of good faith, then it might be that you reach out to somebody a year after they've gone and they're ready to come back. A lot of times I've done that, and people respond and say, "Oh, I'm really glad you reached out to me," right?
Yeah, and finding the time to do all that is just crazy for me.
Well, and I always say, if you're too busy to find the time to do all that, then presumably that means you got all the business you need, right?
No.
So if it's not because you have all the business you need, then I would look at what I'm doing every day and think maybe, then just reprioritize and say, if I'm very busy and I don't have enough time to do all that, then I probably need to cut out some activities that aren't productive and replace them with doing this kind of stuff, for sure. And I've done that many times, over the years, as I've said, okay, I'm spending too much time on Facebook, or maybe even going to networking events that aren't really resulting in new clients, right? And so I sit at home and I go through, there's a time years ago before we had all this sophistication with CRMs where I actually just went through old emails. And I had a tag in my Google contacts for clients, and I would just go through that and look for emails from clients that I hadn't talked to in a really long time, or a lot of it would be people I had spoken to, but they never became clients. And I would reach out to them, and often if I just get one client out of that because they get my email and end up signing up for a few private training sessions with me, that in itself, more than pays for the time I've spent doing that. So. But that's why I always respond to that in that way. It's, if I'm too busy to do marketing, then it should be because I'm busy making money. If I'm not busy making money, then I need to get busy doing marketing, whatever else I'm doing, and if it's because I'm busy doing the work that I've been hired to do, but I'm not getting paid enough money, then again, we need to look at, it's a whole different conversation, but we want to look at how to scale, how to spend less time doing the current work that I have, maybe automate more things so that I can free up time, to prospect, or maybe hire somebody to help. That's always, the other way to look at it. Right. I saw something come up in the chat, but as usual, I always have trouble finding the dumb chat screen once I'm sharing my screen.
Connie is mentioning if it's not enough time to do it yourself, you could use a virtual assistant.
There it is. The chat screen, for some reason, when I pop it out in a separate window, it hides behind other screens, and even when I click on Nimble, it doesn't come to the front. That's a little bug to report. Yeah, use a virtual assistant, and I did that at one point too, and then I ended up automating what the virtual assistant was doing, which actually is my next upcoming course, How to Automate Your Coaching or Training Business. That's the next course I'm going to be producing that shows you literally how I've automated the whole process from the time somebody signs up for, paid sessions with me to the time that they've scheduled their session. I don't have to do a thing. I just have to show up. Everything's done for me. The process automatically creates the Zoom meeting. It automatically emails them. It adds a record in Airtable where I keep a log of my sessions. Everything's automatic, all because of Zapier. So let's take a look at what this process looks like if we don't have Kajabi where everything's built in nicely like this. And by the way, you're seeing an example of why I highly recommend Kajabi. Yes, it costs, but look what it saves you, right? I don't have, even for a process like this, I don't have to go out and use 3 different tools. It's all built in right here. And by the way, the only other thing you might want to add to your form is maybe a field for notes or comments so that they can fill that in and explain, what they want to talk about when they do follow up with you or vice versa, right? Here it is. So you can add a comments field into the form, save it, back to the page and refresh, and boom, there it is. Right, and you don't have to make that required when you're doing this in Kajabi. I can click in here to edit this and uncheck it so that it's not a required field. Everything else is required. Obviously, I absolutely want their first, last name, and email, right? So that's that. So let's take a look at how we might do this in Google Forms. Forms.new. Let's see if that works. I haven't tried that one yet. Yep, there it is. So if you don't know what I just did, Google probably 6 months ago started rolling this out where if you want a new Google Sheet in your Chrome browser, just type sheets.new, docs.new, and then I just here did forms.new, and it takes you to a brand new form creation screen, right? So this is going to be very quick, right? We're going to do first, and Google's gotten really smart. It kind of figures out from the way you've titled the question, what kind of question to make it. All right, we'll copy that to get last. And then I don't need to do, with Google Forms, you don't need to do a field for email because in your settings, you just go collect email addresses, right? And sure, you can send them a response receipt if the respondent requests it, meaning if they want to, they can get a confirmation to see what information they filled out. Okay, and then I always like to check this off. Let them edit after they submit, because if they get that receipt and realize they have a typo in their email, they can go back and fix it. I don't necessarily want them to see a summary of all the other responses, so we'll leave that one unchecked, right? So now it puts the email address, and of course it's required. Let's also make sure this is required, and technically you don't have to make the last name required, but I certainly like to have it. And this is really all you need. Then you go into responses, and let's title the form QBC 2019. Okay, and then let's go to Zapier.
Seth,
Mm-hmm.
can a Google form allow for uploads of attachments like
Absolutely.
Smartsheet can? Yeah.
Yep. So if I add a question in the type, file upload, and then I'll confirm that. And I can even restrict it to only certain types of files.
And where does that go? Because I know that if we upload in Smartsheet, it goes into that row. Does it just upload a link to the drive?
It goes into your Google Drive folder, right? And I believe it goes into whatever folder this form is situated in. So in this case, because I didn't organize it any other way, it's sitting in the My Drive folder. So the attachment will go into My Drive. So yeah, that part's a little bit disconnected, which I don't love. But when I get into the Zapier part, I can certainly create a Zap that does something, sort of better with that attachment. So with the Zap, we're going to start with, I got to log in. That's right. I had to clear my cache this morning. Let's make a Zap. All right, Google Forms. All right, new response in a spreadsheet. Which again, the responses go to a spreadsheet that's attached to the form. Now I have to choose which form, or first I have to choose the account because you can have multiple Google accounts, and continue. Then the spreadsheet, it should find it right away because it's smart enough to go to kind of the most recent, but if not, let's search for QBC 2019. It may not have it there yet because it may not actually create the spreadsheet yet. Let me just confirm. All right, create a new spreadsheet, create. So it's linking to the spreadsheet. Boom, I hadn't created it yet. So here's where the responses go. Now it should find it. All right, let's try again. I don't know why it's not finding this. It's sitting right here in my drive. Let's make sure Google sees it. There it is.
Are you in the right Google account up above?
Yeah. Yeah, let's go through it again. Yeah, that's my main Nerd Enterprises account.
Oh, you're looking in forms. You were just trying to find a...
Right, but then it's looking for the spreadsheet where the responses are here.
But shouldn't you be looking at sheets at that point instead of forms?
No, I mean, you can do it either way. But no, I basically the Zap is saying look for a new response in the form, right? But then to customize the response, it's looking for the spreadsheet. So it should do either way. Right? These are all spreadsheets.
Do a...
Let me fill it out real quick so that there's at least one response, right? Let's try that. See how much easier it is with Kajabi? All right, so I submit that. The response comes in. And let's go back. That all looks good. Really strange that it's not finding it. I usually never have this kind of trouble with Zapier. Let me refresh this. And I'm actually going to just start the thing all over. Usually Zapier is so slick in that it just finds everything right away, especially with Google. Let's start over. So Google Forms, new response, choosing my main account. There it is. So yeah, it looks like I had to actually refresh the Zapier. It wasn't enough to tell it to go look for new responses. Anyway, so now we're going to find the worksheet, which is form responses. There's only the one that's down here. We can close that. All right, I'll test and review. That's just to make sure. That's what you actually always want to have, at least one submission, which you'll do as a test anyway, because now I can confirm that it's getting the right information and it's going to the right place, right? There's the email, the name, it's got the timestamp and so on. So done editing. And now what to do next? Well, there's a lot of things I can do from here, right? So one thing I might do is say, add them into Nimble, and I would create this part of the step in the Zap and tag them QBC 2019. Right? If you use any cloud-based CRM, you can do essentially the same thing, I'm sure. But the other thing is, I want to do the Gmail auto response, right? So I'll put in Gmail, and of course the event will be to send an email. And I'll show you one other really cool tip, which I've been showing people lately, is you want a nicely formatted email, right? And I'll show you how you can do that really easily, because with Zapier, you can format the email with sort of HTML. Wrong account. That one. Okay, now the to address is going to be from the responses in the spreadsheet, and it's going to go to their first name. Right? I can certainly choose to CC myself. I like to do that with these kind of things because that's my way.
Shouldn't that be the email address?
Yes. Wait. Is it the email? Oh, custom. It's funny. That's not actually clear, but you might be right. It might need to be the email address. It's almost not clear if it's meant to be to the who it's addressed to in the headers in the name.
Well, the little text underneath says, who should this email be sent to? And then it shows the email address.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm going too fast. So again, I can CC myself. I can BCC somebody if I want. Optionally, I can set up like from text, and I can say that it's from me. That would have been the default anyway. And I can do a from name, which would be me. And I can even do something clever like set David via QuickBooks Connect. Right, the reply to, in case I want the reply to be an email address other than my own, the one I'm sending it from. Bad idea, by the way. It's an option, but that kind of thing will trigger spam filters. So better not to do it unless you have a really good reason for wanting to do that. Now the subject, what I might do is I might want to stick their name in here. Right, first name, and then before that I'll put thanks for connecting, and then it'll just put their first name after that, right? It just makes it personalized. It gets their attention when they see their own name in the subject of the email. Now here's the kicker. You can do a simple plain text email. It's going to look ugly, right? And remember, the initial auto response that you want to do here is one that's going to have your contact information. So you might want to have it formatted nicely, easy to read. So you're going to want to change the body type to HTML. And then you can go in here and you can write the email. But if you want a good editor that will help you get it formatted nicely, I discovered this website, this tool called TinyMCE. Of course, I'll provide everyone with the link. And so I can go in here and it gives me a little text editor where I can go in and I can write the email, and you can see I have my, what you see is what you get kind of text editor. Now you can't save this, right? So you have to kind of do it all in one shot. But I can say hi, and I'll just leave the, I can't type today. I'll leave the space here for what will become my first name merge tag. So great to connect at Quick QuickBooks Connect. Here's my contact info, right? Mobile, office. You know, obviously you fill in the blanks. And if I want to bold this or something, you know, again, I use the little editor and I can, you know, whatever. I can go to town, format it however I want. I can insert hyperlinks if I want to link to my website or something. It doesn't like the word QuickBooks, apparently. But once I'm ready, once I'm done, you know, formatting this, over here, this ellipsis menu reveals the source code option. And I can just take this code. You don't really need to worry about, you know, the stuff at the beginning. You can just start with the P tag, which is just a paragraph tag. And I'll copy that code and then just paste it in here, right? Now, if I have labels, and you don't have to worry about anything else. Notice it has the strong tag. That's how it bolds it. And anything else I've done, the tags will be there. So you literally just have to copy and paste. You don't have to know HTML. And then here, if you want to automatically label the email with the labels that you have set up in your Gmail account, you can do that. And here I can even grab the attachment that they uploaded. Right? Did I lose Greg? No. So Greg, you were kind of asking about this. At this point, I can go back to here. And it's probably the empty step. In order to test this properly, you need to make sure you kind of use every field in the form. So I would have probably attached some sample file just to make sure. But this is where you could actually grab an attachment from what they uploaded in the form. And this way, it can be attached to the email somehow. Right? And then we'll say continue. And we'll say, what does it want? All right, so it says step 2 needs my attention. Well, this is not good. So it says it needs my attention. Edit here. I click. Oh, somehow we skipped step 2 altogether. So let's just remove that. That was weird. And now that should work. And now I can test and review. And I'll probably get an email because of the test. I did use my email, right? Yep. Here it is. So it didn't go to my important emails. Apparently an email from myself to myself is not important. But here it is, and you can see, so you want to confirm this, that everything came out formatted the way you want. And it's important to do this because I've done this and then had the whole thing come into one like jumbled up paragraph without any line breaks or anything. So always make sure you do this and test it. All right. So
You have to add your signature at the bottom.
you can, again, you would have to, if you have a standard signature that you use when you're setting up the Zap, you would have to include that in the body portion, right? Because it's sending from Zapier on your behalf, so
Okay.
it's not going to know about your whatever signature. So again, you could literally just take your standard signature, like when I go to compose a new email, I can take all of this, which is my standard signature, and let's get out of this mode. And I can just paste it all into here. It even grabs the image, which is kind of cool. And then I would just copy all that HTML code.
Oh, okay.
Right? So you go from body to the end of body if you want. Right? And then paste all that in.
Wow.
Continue. And again, it looks ugly, but you don't have to worry about that. You just have to worry about copying and pasting it in, right? Let's retest and review. And see, there it goes. Now, and it looks perfect.
Nice.
Yep. This tiny MCE editor is really cool. I used to actually do this in WordPress because you can just pull up a dummy WordPress post and format it and then grab the HTML code from that. But it was like a pain in the neck, especially WordPress itself. One of the reasons I was excited to get away from WordPress and into Kajabi is WordPress can be so slow and it can lock up and all kinds of things. I ended up hating WordPress in the end. So I just Googled like an online text editor or something like that. I forget what the exact search was. And I found this product, this tool, which is perfect because, like I said, you have your basic editor here. You can do all the formatting you want. You can put background colors, different text colors, and then you just grab the code and copy and paste it. You don't need to know what the code actually says or means, right? So, but this is how you can do it if you don't have something like I have with Kajabi where it's all built in. And Google Forms is just one example. Again, remember, you can what do you call it? You can use Airtable, you can use Smartsheet. There's a lot of forms applications out there you can use. Some people use Typeform. The other thing to remember is once you've built this form in Google Forms, let's say, and assuming you want to embed it on a page in your website, so you're not sending them to some random long, ugly Google Forms link, what you can do is when you click the send option, this send actually means I want to send this form to somebody. And then the choices are you can send it via email by just putting in their email address. This will give you a hyperlink and you can shorten it. And then again, there's that little code snippet symbol, right? And interesting, I never ran into this before, but apparently you can't embed a form that makes use of a file upload question. So that's interesting to note. So if you, which is kind of dumb because what I would say immediately to that is if you really want to be able to have a file upload, which for this purpose, you may not need one. So we can certainly remove that from this. There, just delete that. And now I'll be able to get embed code. And again, you don't need to worry about what this says. You just copy this and paste it into your website. And you can play with it. If you paste it into your website and you don't like the dimensions, here you can play with the width and the height of it. And then you'll get the updated code and copy and paste it. And if you're really feeling adventurous, once you've pasted this into your website, you can, it's pretty clear if you look closely at the code where the width and height settings are, so you can just tweak it right there. You don't have to keep going back and forth between this and your website to do it. But anyway, that's how you do it. And any other app that uses forms that allows for file uploads, like Airtable, will easily let you embed the form code even with the file upload option. So for that reason alone, bottom line, if file uploading is something that you feel like you really need to have or want to have on your form, then don't use Google Forms, use Airtable, right? The other issue with the attachment with Google Forms that we discussed earlier that Greg brought up is you don't have a lot of control over where that attachment goes. It just gets dropped into your Google Drive folder. Whereas if you're using something like Airtable, the file will be attached to that line item in the Airtable database. Same with Smartsheet, right? So and this is why I often say to people, it's not so terrible, and it shouldn't necessarily have to be so overwhelming to know all of these tools, because you're seeing an example here of where understanding how to use different tools and what their sort of strengths and weaknesses are, you really have options in terms of choosing which is the right tool for this particular job, right? If I don't care about attachments, Google Forms, and especially if you're like me and use G Suite and you're kind of all in with Google like I am, then you probably want to lean towards Google Forms. The only reason I don't is because Kajabi gives me everything, just built in. The only thing I don't know if I can do in Kajabi is I don't know if I can do like a file upload. I don't think I can. I don't think I can get a file attachment from somebody. Using the Kajabi form. Anyway, so if that became important, I would just build it in Airtable and embed it on my website. And then I can create a Zap that I would create a comparable form here and create a Zap that adds the form submission. And then I still have the attachment in Airtable where I need it, right? So if you're not using a system like Kajabi where everything's all built in, then Zapier is going to be your friend, because that's where you're going to be able to take whatever they responded with in the form and route it to your CRM and route it to wherever else you need the information routed to, right? And then there are programs like MailChimp, right? If you don't have Kajabi, where with MailChimp, you can actually use Zapier and say, when somebody fills out this form, add them to this list in MailChimp. And then in MailChimp, you can configure the email automation. So you can have a MailChimp setup where it says, once somebody subscribed to this list, send them an email right away, send them another email on day 1, another one on day 3, and so on. So, again, the key is, especially if if the nature of how you're connecting with people is such that you want to share information with them or think of them as a prospect of some sort, so you can follow up with them and you're hoping to do business with them, then having some kind of an automated email chain is handy. It's helpful. And obviously what you're trying to do with each of these emails is encourage them to reply, right? And you have to think about that. What ultimately is it that I want them to do? In my case, I want them to reply and either sign up for something or schedule a call with me so we can talk about it, right? So a lot of times in those emails that I respond with, like I said earlier, I'll have a link that says, hey, schedule a 30-minute call with me, and I give them the link, and this way they can click on it whenever they're ready and schedule the 30-minute call. And then I can do the call and talk to them about whatever it is I think I can help them with, or find out what it is I can help them with, and then make whatever suggestions I'm inclined to make. So I think it's a great way to kind of plan and prepare for your networking at an event like QuickBooks Connect, because again, it saves you a lot of the clerical trouble of having to deal with all these business cards, right? And like I said, once you have these submissions, you can find the business card and kind of match it up, and then you can scan it and you can attach it to their contact profile in Nimble or whatever you're using for that kind of thing. In Airtable, it's perfect because I can attach a scan of their card to that Airtable record along with anything else they may have uploaded, right? So it just makes it easy, saves a lot of time. And it actually kind of makes you look really cool when you consider them. Hey, yeah, just pull out your mobile device or your iPad or whatever, and here's go to this website and just fill out your details, and then I can follow up with you. I'm following up with anybody who fills out this form after the event. This way, we don't have to worry about losing business cards or any of that kind of craziness. So that's it. That's, like I said in the beginning, when my friend Cindy reached out to me last week and asked me about this process, I said, it'd be worth doing again because a lot has changed. When I originally did this a few years ago, Zapier was around, but it wasn't as robust as it is now. Now, if I had just simply refreshed my browser page on Zapier, it would have worked instantly with the Google form that I'd set up. So, all right, let's check in on the chat here and on the live Facebook feeds. I sort of forgot to check the live Facebook feed. Halloween hangovers. Larry asked with Google Form. That might have been before I started talking about doing it with Google Form. So, Larry asked, if you don't want to do it with your web page, you can do it with Google Form. Yeah, and any of these tools that you use to create the form, you can just link directly to that form. But remember, one of the benefits of doing this, or a sort of side benefit, is that you drive traffic to your website, which is good for your SEO, which is search engine optimization. So that's sort of a side benefit of this, is that you have a very good reason for sending traffic to your website. So if you can, I would embed it. But if for some reason you can, or it's not easy because you're relying on a web developer and it costs money and takes time, then sure, just send them right to the form and you can kind of usurp the whole website part of the process. But the other thing is, in addition to the SEO, I also generally want to get people in the habit of going onto my website. In my case, especially because, my website has a lot of resources that I want people to take advantage of and play with, between the courses and the free stuff. So I definitely want people going to my website if I can get them there. And this is a perfectly good reason for them to go on there, just to submit their information so I can stay in touch. And then and that's actually what I do anyway all year long. Is I have on the main page of my website, I'll show you this. The main page of the new website has an opt-in form. And the whole point of it is to have people give me permission, so to speak, to stay in touch right here. So whenever somebody fills out this quick little form on my website on the main page at new.nerdenterprises.com, you're going to get added to the list of emails that I send, the list of people who I send emails to every single Sunday, right? And a lot of people read those emails, and they're not your typical sort of salesy kind of emails. They're more about, what I experience each week and things I've learned, and sharing that knowledge and sharing those lessons that I've learned each week with anybody who cares to have them. So it's not a bad thing to do on your website in general anyway, is have like a general contact form so you can gather emails. I was talking about this recently, I forget where, but a lot of people are kind of using social media as their business, which is a mistake, frankly, because you don't own that. You don't own anything that you have on Facebook. And if for some reason Facebook decided to shut you down because they don't like something you're doing, or somebody complains about you, then you're done. You've lost all you've lost all contact with the people that you're connected to through Facebook, right? So really, if you're looking to build and grow and scale a business, the way to do that is to build your own community. And the only way to do that, frankly, is to capture email addresses and use that to stay in touch with people, right? That's one of the reasons why every week when I send my weekly email out, first of all, it's one of the reasons why I don't just slam people with, information about what I have to offer, right? A lot of the emails we get when we sign up is just sign up for this or sign up for that. And it's boring. I don't want to read that stuff. I end up unsubscribing, right? That's why I make it a point to share something that I feel is interesting, some experience I had, and it's usually based on something specific that happened to me in the past week, right? If you pay attention to what's going on throughout your day and every week, there's always something you've run into that you've learned from that you can share with others. And that's the basis of my weekly email. And then, yes, of course, I throw in links and say, hey, here's a new course that I've just released, or, so I throw that stuff in as a sort of sidebar to what the main content is. And it's a great way to stay in touch. And then I encourage people every week to bang that reply button. That's my famous phrase, bang that reply button and let me know what's going on. And I've had some of the best conversations with people as a result of that. When people do take the time to hit reply. And sometimes it's just talking. It's just somebody replying and saying, hey, I really, that message really resonated with me. And then we get to talk about it. And it has nothing to do with business necessarily, other than maybe it's about how we function in our businesses. But what I mean is it has nothing to do with me wanting anybody to sign up for anything. I don't care about that as much. I care about the connections and the conversations, because those always lead to something valuable, even if it's just learning from each other. And talking about going to QuickBooks Connect, isn't that what QuickBooks Connect is really all about? It's about connecting and learning from one another. We all have a lot to share. It's one of the great things about our accounting community that I think is unique to our accounting community. I don't think you find that in a lot of other industries. In fact, I know people in some other industries that I work with that tell me it's cutthroat. The last thing people will do is share knowledge and help you, when you're a potential competitor of theirs. And here we just help each other. It doesn't matter, because I think the philosophy is that there's plenty to go around, and each of us might be in the same accounting field, but we have different areas of expertise within that, and that's fine. I don't want to take on every client that comes in my door, and I'm happy to send them to somebody else who does that kind of client work.
That's the way it is with my tax roundtable group. We share information and make referrals and serve as kind of a sounding board for getting other perspectives. And so I see people more as colleagues rather than competitors.
Yeah. And that's what it is. I mean, years ago when Twitter was still fairly new, I remember going on there and thinking, what am I going to do? Why am I going to talk to other accountants? And then I learned why. I had this one accountant who's pretty well known. Even now, I think. I don't see him around as much on social media as I used to. I think he's actually only on Twitter. I've never seen him on Facebook, or I don't think even LinkedIn. He's probably on LinkedIn by now. But anyway, he referred me tens of thousands of dollars in business during a several-year period, because it was just heavy sort of Excel work that he didn't necessarily want to have to do. And he didn't really have the expertise. I mean, he knew Excel, like a lot of people know Excel, but not to the extent that I did. And he was happy to just refer that work onto me. And so I did a lot of Excel work for his clients. he sent me one big project where one of his clients had an investment portfolio that went back many years, and the way they had organized the spreadsheet that they used to keep track of it was clunky. And so I repurposed that spreadsheet for them. It was a big project, made me a lot of money, and his client was happy, which of course made him look good because he referred them to me. So, and that's the way it works. We help each other out. I got a job in last week from a colleague of ours who needed something. I didn't have the time to jump on it. So I actually pulled in somebody from our 97 and up group, and I paid her to do it. And she was great. And, it involved QuickBooks Desktop, and I didn't want to, I don't really deal with desktop as much anymore. So I didn't want to sit there and start installing, whatever version of QuickBooks Desktop the client was on. And then it involved importing transactions with SASAnt, which, by the way, the SASAnt desktop import product is awesome. It works just as well as the QBO product, which is the original one they made. Because we did screen share, of course, and I helped her with it. And it works really, really well. So, again, we leverage our community and we help each other out, and then we sort of spread it around. And I didn't mind paying her, half the fees that I charged because she did all the work. She helped me get it done. So it's money I was able to bring in. I was able to sort of scale because I was busy with other things. I had her doing the work. I provided her with some support to make sure she, was comfortable with what she was doing. So I gave her the training she needed, in other words, and everybody wins, and that's what this is all about to me at the end of the day.
Yeah, I take that philosophy too. I mean, it's the only way to go.
Yeah.
So, do you do a lot of heavy Excel stuff? Do you do the Power Query and Power BI?
I haven't really had occasion to get into that. I know Dennis
Power Pivot. I'm sorry, Power Pivot.
Yeah. No, I honestly haven't had occasion to do that. I've been able to do what I need to with just standard pivot tables.
Okay. I'm pretty.
Yeah, I don't do it either. I just have time.
Oh my gosh, it turns pivot tables on their head.
But it's like sticking
It's amazing.
It's like having access to a SQL database as opposed to, and you can create relationships and that kind of thing. It's like working with Access.
So when I need something at that level, that's when I go to Airtable.
Yeah,
right?
It's the whole data modeling thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because if I need relational tables, then to me Airtable is the tool for that. Because it's, first of all, it's cloud-based, so I can access it easily from anywhere. I don't have to worry about emailing files back and forth. All the problems you have when you're dealing with Excel sheets. But Airtable is built for that specifically. It's a beautiful relational database. In fact, when I first started playing with Airtable, Dennis, the way I described it to people was that it's like Microsoft Access, but in the cloud and much easier to use. You don't have to worry about learning how to write functions or queries or anything like that. It's so much easier.
I'll have to look at it because I'm just an Excel nerd. So.
Yep. So, Airtable is definitely to me, it's the way to go when it comes to databases, and especially I love the fact that it's in the cloud. I've also almost always, unless there's a really good reason why I need to keep it in Excel, I do most of my spreadsheet work in Google Sheets now. Right, and Google Sheets does pivot tables. They're not quite as pretty as Excel's pivot tables, but they do all the same things. I can set up my rows and columns however I need. But I'm sure there's no Power Pivot equivalent for Google Sheets yet.
I doubt it.
But I stress yet because they're constantly adding stuff. You can search for add-ons to Google Sheets, and you'll find some interesting stuff. And then back to Airtable, I was working on a project for somebody recently where Airtable has a pivot table block that you can add on. And I was able to create something really cool for this guy because I built this whole sort of scheduling app in Airtable. And the reason we weren't, using an existing product was he had some unique needs in this, including the fact that he has, he's a contractor and he has installers that go out. And every time he schedules an installer, he associates the revenue that's going to be generated from that with that installer's scheduling. And the system keeps track of, what we call productivity days. So you have so many working days in the month times the number of installers you have working for you equals your total productivity days. But as soon as you schedule somebody, we deduct the productivity day. As soon as somebody says, I need a day off, we deduct the productivity day. And so we were using all that, and I was ultimately able to create a pivot table because he had a number in mind about, for each installer, what the weekly revenue being generated from that installer should be. And so I created a pivot table in Airtable that let us see that very crystal clear. You could see by installer, throughout the 4 weeks of the month, exactly what their revenue was. And he wanted to be able to quickly see if anybody was under this threshold, because that meant he either needed to confirm that it was because they were taking days off, or he needed to go get some work and schedule them, to do some jobs. And anyway, so you can get really deep with that kind of stuff with Airtable. And then
I need to jam, so I will talk to you guys later. Thank you for inviting me.
I got to run myself. We're actually over time here
Yeah.
today.
See you guys.
See ya.